I have some amazing news for you. You are about to learn about the greatest financial deal in the history of football or soccer. The greatest one. There is not another one that is going to be able to top this. Because if you are a fan of Steadfast FC in the second division of Ghana, I'm going to need you to put on a seatbelt. Things are about to get crazy. So a couple of years ago, I make these videos every year. The best hidden wonder kids on Football Manager. Probably my favorite video that I make like every year. I'm like, I am so excited to bust open the new game of Football Manager and go through there and find the top, whatever it is, 20 wonder kids that aren't in large leagues or with large teams already. Guys that are kind of off the beaten path that have the potential to be world class. Now, a couple of years ago, I was thumbing around. In Football Manager, you got to see behind the database. You could see the potential ability of players and what Football Manager scouts are rating them at. And we found a guy named Abdul Fatawu Isahaku. I believe he had his name in a different order because Football Manager had his name in a different order. But he was there, and he was in the second division of Ghana. And we rated him, I believe, as like the third best hidden wonder kid on Football Manager, probably 2 years ago. And as a result, we ended up keeping track of him on stream. You know, if there was news breaking about Abdul Fatawu, then we were going to get that news, right? There was rumors that he was going to go to Liverpool when he turned 18 years old. Rumors that were flying around all over the place. But he ended up settling at Sporting in 2022. And the transfer looked like it was for basically no money at all. But that is where there's a little catch in here because he goes to Sporting, right, last season. Spends the first year at Sporting playing with the B team. And as you can see, well, as I'm attempting to show you, he spends, he plays 6 matches in the first team, 13 matches with the B team, like that, just kicking it, just hanging out, right? Trying to break through and be a significant player, but clearly one step away from whatever Ruben Amorim was looking for in his Sporting team at the time. So at the start of this season, they negotiate a loan to Leicester. That loan to Leicester has turned into an absolutely fabulous move for Abdul Fatawu. Because we always knew. Football Manager always knew. And honestly, I was watching highlights of him, and this was a guy that managed to get into the Ghana team for like the World Cup, as a fringe player already. He was already in the team by the time they were at the World Cup in 2022. He's a baller, right? He's one of those people where he kind of jumps off the screen. There's a reason Football Manager scouts saw him and was like, yo, I'm thinking starter in a top 5 league potential on this kid in the second division of Ghana, right? He is an aggressive winger. He can take people on. And my friend Ben Sposak actually was tweeting about him. And Ben said, Abdul Fatawu has created the most big chances in the championship this season. This was on April 29th. He also ranks in the top 5 players for successful take-ons at 2.86 per 90, 20 goal contributions in his first season in England, wand of a left foot, a fantastic debut campaign. It is a fantastic debut campaign for Abdul Fatawu. He has been an integral part of what has since become, after this tweet, Leicester City's championship winning season in the championship. Abdul Fatawu, first year as a regular starter in any European league. Right, the championship playing for the right to go into the Premier League, that's a huge deal, even though he's on loan for Sporting. And Ruben Amorim was also full of praise for him. He said Fatawu is a player with a lot of talent, but sometimes team dynamics and coaches can't get the best out of players. Let's make money with it. We'll get to what he's talking about in a second. I'm very happy for Fatawu. He has always behaved very well here. He played for the AB team in Youth League and always with great behavior. So he's not somebody that was making a bad impression anywhere he went. But talking about let's make money with it. Well, there was a clause in that loan of particular interest to Steadfast FC in Ghana, because there was a clause in the loan to Leicester that would guarantee that Leicester bought Abdul Fatawu as long as it got promoted. At least that's what one article said. The other article said that they basically had to buy him at the end of the loan. Either way, Leicester was definitely a promotion favorite. They looked like they were going to bounce right back up to the Prem. So they were signing this loan with eyes on actually completing a transfer. And the transfer is 17 million euros. So this is a serious amount of money. Sporting spent allegedly 1.2 million in all like closing fees for the transfer, even though the vast majority of that wasn't going to Steadfast FC, right? So they are able to take their 1.2 million out, and that leaves you with about 15.8 million euros. Out of that 15.8 million euros, Steadfast FC is set to get 50 freaking percent. Steadfast FC completed the transfer to Sporting, and they said, you know what? We don't want any upfront fee really at all. All we want is a 50% sell-on profit clause, which means after the initial closing costs of the transfer that Sporting had to pay out to agents and everything, to signing on bonuses and those sorts of things, we're splitting the rest of that money 50-50 because they believed in Abdul Fattah's ability to make it big. They didn't want, the 2 million now. They wanted the payout later. And they're set to make 8 million euros in just like that. Now, in this tweet by Santi, which tells the whole story, he details the highest fee ever received by Steadfast FC was for £25,000 previously. Obviously, we're kind of going back and forth between euros and pounds here, but they're set to make. So their biggest fee ever is what? That's 35,000 euros. They're about to make 7.9 million euros just because of the sell-on clause to Abdul Fattah. It's so crazy I didn't believe it, but I've found multiple articles from Ghanaian news websites that are reporting on this exact thing. The 20-year-old Abdul Fattah is going to make his move, and Steadfast FC is about to get a check for 7.9 million euros because they bet the long game. As Santi's tweet says, the Ghanaian club asked for no transfer fee as they didn't want to stand in the way of his career in Europe, but a 50% sell-on clause in the first 3 years of his move to Sporting, knowing he was destined for greatness. Well, he's found that greatness. He's found that lightning in a bottle with Leicester City. If you haven't watched him play, I highly recommend it. He's a heck of a player, and they believed in him, and he actually made it work. Although, it's pretty easy to believe in a guy that's going to the World Cup at the age of 18, right? that's kind of the situation they were already in. Like the guy he was loaned out to a different team in Ghana. Clearly, they were just trying to move him up. But this is an unbelievably astute business deal. Mind-blowingly astute business deal by Steadfast FC. They lived, 2 years after Abdul Fattah left their club without seeing any of the rewards, and they're going to be paid back in full with interest for that patience. And honestly, it's a great deal for Leicester, too, because now you're getting a 20-year-old winger who's a regular in the Ghanaian national team, and you're only getting him for 17 million euros, and you're about to be a Premier League side, and this guy's going to be able to, hopefully at the age of 20, make that jump and continue to develop with the team. Leicester will have aspirations of getting itself back onto the right side of mid-table in its first season back up. It was kind of wild they got relegated in the first place. We'll see what else Jamie Vardy has in the tank. Huzzah! But for Leicester, I'm looking at this as a good deal. But if you're a Steadfast FC supporter, fan, friggin' president of the club, I don't know. I don't know anything about Steadfast FC other than the fact the biggest transfer fee they've ever gotten is 35,000 euros, and they just cashed in for 8 million. Now, what are they going to do with this money? Who the hell knows, right? I do know that we made that video where we went to the Faroe Islands to talk to the semi-pro club that had made it to the Conference League group stage about where the money was going to go. They basically said they were just going to use it to kind of fund the club, right? Invest in infrastructure and hire better coaches and keep everything localized. So maybe it's a good idea, maybe it's not, to go out and try and sign a bunch of good players and at least get Steadfast FC up to the top level of the Ghanaian leagues, right? But I honestly, when you get a check for 7.9 million euros and you're in the second Ghanaian division, usually dealing in 10 or 20,000 euros a pop, I can imagine that's almost overwhelming. Where exactly are you going to, or where are you going to spend that money in the first place? Now, if I can offer my 2 cents, spend it on finding another Abdul Fattah, and then just keep doing this, dude. Try and find, it's not like Abdul Fattahs grow on trees, obviously, but developing a giant youth system where you can create this kind of farm system of sending players to Europe with massive sell-on clauses so that you can then reap the windfall of any massive transfers that come down the line. Because when you see a 17 million euro transfer and you're talking about a club that's going to the Premier League, that looks like a bargain deal. That's not a lot of money. But for a team like Steadfast FC, I would imagine that's going to fund the club by itself for half a decade at least. Probably more than that. Now, the mad lad behind this whole club is actually politician Haruna Idrisu. He's the guy that owns the club, also owns another club in the Premier League called Karela United. So we know that dude's campaign's going to be very well funded next time around. But congratulations to Steadfast FC on completing the greatest transfer deal of all time on a rather benign looking loan future fee deal that Leicester was able to strike. Well, they're dancing in Ghana tonight. Or Steadfast. I'm assuming it's not a town. I really don't know. They're dancing in Steadfast tonight.